Good Sabbath to you all. Good morning. Good morning. This is the beginning of a new journey. This is Bill Bullock coming to you live from the Biblical Lifestyle Center in Texarkana, USA. We are about to begin an adventure, a great enterprise together to go through an entire year study once again of the Creator of the universe's beautiful Torah, His instruction manual for how to live a well-lived life that's meaningful and fruitful upon the earth in our days of mortality. This is a new theme this year, a new title this year. The new theme and title is Returning to and Laying Hold of the Tree of Life. That's the lens through which we will be looking into the wisdom and the stories and the beauty and the majesty of the Holy One's Torah. Returning to and laying hold of the tree of life. Well, it's now the 18th of October, 2025, the 26th day of Tishrei, 5786 from the years of creation, and we are ready to start our Torah studies anew. The journey, beloved, is about to begin. This week we will be focusing on Parsha Bereshit, the very beginning, the very opening Parsha of the Torah download. And the Torah download will consist primarily of the first 5 books. This will be the wellspring out of which all revelation will flow. It will be the riverhead, the head of the outpouring of the spring, and all the other revelation streams, the prophets, the writings, the apocalyptic literature, the Gospels as they're known, the letters of the apostles. All these other revelation flows will come forth out of this one stream and will all tie its genesis and tie their essence back to the beginning point, the first 5 books, the Torah. So welcome to Parsha Bereshit, the beginning, Genesis 1:1 through Genesis 6:8. Now, the endeavor is to discover the Creator of the universe's wisdom, to understand His purposes for putting man on earth, and His calling upon our lives, and what can happen, what can be accomplished if we lay aside our predispositions, we lay aside our animosities and our offenses, if we lay aside our theologies even. I know that's offensive to some. If we lay aside our pre-existing theologies, philosophies, ideologies, ethnocentricities, and do all that, I say, what does the Creator want? What has He designed us to do? Who has He designed us to be? How has He designed us to impact our life? Introducing the endeavor and the theme. This is another life-changing 12-month journey we're about to undertake, a life-changing 12-month journey through the Torah, through the revelation stream. The Creator's master thesis on the meaning and the purpose of mortal life. That's what the Torah is. And it's time for us now to do so, to go back to the ark, to bring out of the ark and to break open the seals of the scroll once again and begin the journey of discovery afresh. As faithful men of the covenant lifestyle have been doing each year at this time for the past several millennia. Every year at this time for the last several millennia, faithful men of the covenant have been doing this, going back to the ark, taking out the scroll, unwrapping the seal, and beginning to read again. We will start spending precious hours like they have done in generations past and in generations current, and we'll do for generations in the future. We will do as they do, carefully examining the marks of language on lambskin, made by scribes long ago, scribes from a different culture, in a different, what to consider to us maybe a foreign language of Hebrew. In a passionate search, we will look through all these marks on the lambskin scrolls for answers to life's ultimate and most important questions. Well, so what? To what kind of questions will be looking for answers to? What kind of questions is it we're looking for answers to? Or at least clues, perhaps, in the scrivener's marks on these ancient scrolls. Well, let's talk about that. The mysteries, the questions we would like to have answered, or at least addressed, are how did the heavens and the earth as we know them get here? Where did man, humankind, people like us, creatures like us, where did we come from? And why are we really here? What's the meaning of it all? What's the purpose of it all? Questions like, if there is a God, who is he? What is he like? What is his end game? What's his plan? What's his strategy? Where do we fit in? And realizing that he has a plan, and if we fit into it, it's not working right now. So how has humanity as a whole gotten this whole life thing so wrong for so long that we have the world we have now, the situation it presently is? And another question, what must we do to fix the earth and the heavens and the universe? And another question is, if we are here, are we doing this alone out of our own ingenuity, or does our desire to fix these things come from someone else, come from him, come from this creator God? Is he an adversary we must overcome, or is he an ally and a benefactor to whom we must gravitate? Well, these are important questions, and there are many, many more that we will address as time goes by in this year's worth of study. But take a deep breath now. These mysteries that I've talked about, these questions that I've addressed, these mysteries of the universe beckon to us, certainly. But patience, grasshoppers. Let's take it one step at a time. The theme this year, as I said earlier, as I alluded to earlier very quickly, is that the theme of our stories and studies in Torah year 5786 will be returning to and laying hold of the tree of life. Returning to, we're going to go back to something that's ancient. And laying hold of, we're going to be aggressively engaged with what we're doing. And what is it? It's a tree of life. And we'll talk about tree, and we'll talk about life, and what it means to return to and lay hold of the tree of life. I encourage you, though, I invite you, before you even know, I talk to your spirit right now, the neshama within you that's being awakened, and I say, come and return. Come and lay hold of the tree of life. If you want a backstory, if you want to spend some time, maybe in your afternoon, go back to the backstory. Genesis 2:9, Genesis 3:22, Psalm 1:1-3, and Proverbs 3:18, and you can meditate on those verses to get with the theme of returning to and laying hold of the tree of life. Well, let's start with Genesis 2:9 for a moment. That's the Garden of Eden picture being drawn. It's part of our Parsha this week, Genesis 2:9. And the Torah says, out of the ground that the Holy One made, out of the ground the Holy One did make, every tree grow that is pleasant to the sight and good for food. Now, every tree was pleasant for the sight. Every tree was good for food. But there was another tree, the tree of life. Etz Chaim in Hebrew. Etz Chaim, the tree of life as we translate it into English. The tree of life was there also in the middle of the garden, in the center of the garden, and also with it, aligned with it, was the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It goes forward, and then in Genesis 3:22 and 23, we have a return to this issue of the tree of life. Etz Chaim. Behold, the story after the fall, after the trial of men's free will was had, and man failed that trial. The Holy One says, behold, now the man has become one like one of us, to know good and evil. So now lest he also send forth, shalach, hold forth his hand, and take hold, lay hold of the tree of life, and eat, v'chai olam, and live, English says forever. Lest he do that, therefore, the Holy One sent him out of the garden. And so we have this tree of life being planted in the Garden of Eden, at the centerpiece of the Garden of Eden, of the perfect lifestyle that man has been designed to live. And now we have this separation from the tree of life, and the realization that man will always hunger to lay hold of that tree and then eat of its fruit and chai olam, live forever. Let's go on then forward in our backstory to Psalm 1, 1 through 3. Are you with me? Psalm 1, 1 through 3. And I will tell you that all of Torah can be summed up, not totally, but all of it can be understood through the lens of Psalm 1 and Psalm 2 combined together. Psalm 1, 1 through 3 reads, "Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stands in the seat of sinners, stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of the scornful, but his Torah is in the light. His delight is in the Torah of the Holy One." His delight is in the Torah of the Holy One. So what's not make him not blessed, but blessed, or ashrei actually is a different word in Hebrew, but we'll leave that for another day to talk about. But who is the man who is blessed, or ashrei? Is he whose delight is in the Torah of the Holy One, and whose Torah he meditates day and night, and he will become and he will nurture the ecosystem like a tree planted by the rivers of living water. Planted a tree, planted by the rivers of living water. He will be like this tree of life. It brings forth its fruit in its season, whose leaf also does not wither, and whatsoever he does shall prosper. This is what happens when you lay hold of the tree of life. Through his meditations on the Torah, this is this key of bearing fruit in season, and your leaf not even withering, and becoming and nurturing the ecosystem like that tree planted by the rivers of living water. That's our goal this year, is to get back to a place where we begin to nurture the ecosystem again, where we begin to live out the life that the Holy One has designed us to live, and have the effect on the environment that the Holy One has designed us to have. Trees, well, this is a tree of life. Remember, we're laying hold of the tree of life. Well, the trees are an amazing, wonderfully designed and amazingly impactful power source or life force. They don't just stand there and look pretty. They provide vital ecosystem promoting functions. They do something in the environment. They have an effect on the environment. Trees produce oxygen. They take toxic carbon dioxide that is the offspring of man and other primates and animals, and they begin to cleanse and purify it and turn it back into oxygen, so they replenish the oxygen supply of the earth. Critical factor. They are like a filtering system for the air, for the atmosphere that gives us breathable air. They provide vital ecosystem promoting function of producing oxygen from carbon dioxide. They also facilitate and regulate the water cycle. They are the processors of water and the releasers of water into the environment. They are water processors. So the two most important things in life, trees assist us in providing the ecosystem there. So the tree of life will be that to us. It will be that kind of level of impact upon us too. Also, trees form habitats for biomes or wildlife of all varieties and microorganisms. Also, trees stabilize the soil in which they're found, the earth in which they're found, and make it unshakable, unmovable, undestroyable. And that's the idea of what the Torah as a tree of life can do for us in our lives. And that process of being a life force and generating power force is so wonderful. Proverbs 3:18 then tells us that she, meaning wisdom or the Torah itself, the Torah wisdom of the Holy One, she is a tree of life. It's chaim to those who lay hold of her. This is the source of our terminology, that we will lay hold, not just return to the tree of life, but we would lay hold of it. Beloved, do you want to lay hold of the tree of life? Let's go through this season this year, holding fast to that goal, to lay hold of the tree of life. She is a tree of life to those who lay hold of her, and happy, ashrei, again, it's not quite happy, but we're going to go with that for right now, because that's what the King James Version taught us to say. And happy, ashrei, is he who possesses or acquires, or takes possession of her. That is what we get. What is life then? If it's a tree of life, and if we're acquiring this life, what is haim? What is life? The Hebrew, as I said, is haim, and it's a masculine, plural, superlative form of the root word, which is chay. It's from the verb root, chaya, and that means to thrive, to flourish, to prosper. It is a kind of life, but life to the ultimate degree. Life to the intended potential. Life with sustainable vigor according to the design plan for it. Life at multiple levels. Life that is firing on all cylinders and accomplishing what it's intended to be. A true, meaningful life, an abundant life. A life that is full of joy, hope, but also energy and full of enthusiasm and full of impact. That's Chaim. So she is the tree. The Torah is a tree of this Chaim, this superlative form of thriving and flourishing and prospering with sustainable vigor and building out to potential, to fire on all cylinders. So think about trees. We're talking about a tree of life, and this will be our theme this year, so we'll talk a little bit about that. There are 7 basic aspects of a tree's life cycle, and to think of a tree and just think we know what it is without going through the cycle of what it produces, what it provides for us, and how it does that is very short-sighted. So the first thing, a tree comes from a Genesis seed. Some design force of energy is put into the seed, and it has programs, blueprint of an energy in life. So this Genesis seed, a prepackaged life-generating force. So every tree comes from this Genesis seed. The second thing that comes forth in the life cycle of a tree is that there's a root structure, an underground communication, connection to the soil, a motherboard network, as it were, a connectivity where the realms connect. And so below ground, every tree has roots, and these roots are in a structural form that sends shockwaves through the earth and communicates and also connects it to the bigger environment. There's the third aspect of the tree's life cycle, and that's the shoot structure, the trunk that comes forth, or the stem that comes forth out of that root structure and out of that seed. And then that forms out around that trunk, that forms a bark and a main stem. And this main stem is a plumbed pipeline of xylem and phloem, which sends moisture and nutrients out of the earth. It draws from the roots up into the tree and provides life. Oh, do you see how much life is in the tree? How much life is in the tree of life for us? How much life is in the Torah? This is what it's supposed to be doing for us, nurturing every aspect of our lives by virtue of drawing from the source material and the Genesis seeds, energy, and blueprint. And then beyond the bark and the main stem are the boughs of the tree and the branches of the tree, the different ways in which we impact and affect the world and the environment in which we are, all those different spheres of influence and areas of impact that we're supposed to have. That's the tree. And then the leaves, the actual demonstration. These are like solar panels of photosynthesis for the tree. It's like solar panels. They catch the sunlight, and they have this power to transform it into energy, and that's where life and growth come from. So the leaves, our parts of our lives should be like that. Our relationships should be like that. Our production, our job, our work, our professions, our occupations, our vocations should all be like that. All the different aspects of our lives should be like the leaves, the solar panels of photosynthesis, where we catch the light and begin to turn it into life-giving energy. And finally, the fruit. The fruit is which will reproduce after its kind. It has seed in it. This Genesis seed blueprint reproduces itself in the seed that's in the fruit. And so we should bear fruit as well. This is what walking in the light we talked about last year, and now we talk about returning to and laying hold of the tree of life. Why the Torah? Why are we comparing the Torah to a tree of life? Why? I say we're not doing it. It's done in the book of Proverbs by Shlomo. Solomon. Why is the Torah called the tree of life? Well, Torah is the fountainhead or the wellspring of all the revelation. It is the gold standard against which all other revelation should be compared, to which it should be compared, against which it should be measured. Torah is that not so secret pathway the Holy One has laid out for us. The pathway that leads to Chaim. We have many pathways that the world tries to tell us about, that the charlatans try to tell us about, that the ideologies and the ethnic leaders try to tell us about, that will take us to somewhere. But nobody compares in wisdom to the Holy One, and no text or no source of information compares to the Torah. This is the not so secret pathway that actually leads to Haim, the life, the superlative life, to thriving, to flourishing. Do you want to thrive and do you want to flourish? And do you want that for your family and for your children and your household? Do you want that for your spheres of influence and your neighbors? Do you want that for your nation? Do you want that for your generation? Do you want that for your bloodline? Yes, to thrive, to flourish at the highest level, to function at the highest level in all areas of human life, from seed to fruit, all the way through the cycle. Well, outside the Bible, other paths of education, paths of organized and institutional religion, science, medicine, paths of philosophy, ideology, ethnocentricity, government, political theory, all these other paths that the world tries to take, paths to pleasure, paths of materialism, paths of economics, all these other paths do not lead to Haim. They lead to frustration. They lead to despair. They lead to competition. They lead to anxiety and angst and anger. So, are you tired of that yet? Are you ready to catch the other train going the other way? The train that leads us, the ways that lead us to Haim, the superlative life. Well, that's what the Holy One wants for us. That's what the Creator of the universe wrote the Torah, so we could have a key to finding, to get into. Where He would lay out for us this Torah, which is the tree of life, to get us back on the pathway that leads to Haim. So He wants to do that, but how will He accomplish it? What will be His methodology? How will He? This seems like an impossible task. Man has gone off in his own directions, doing his own thing for way too long. How will He fix this? Well, imagine for the moment you are in the position of the Holy One, having to make these decisions as to how you're going to reconnect with humanity, how you're going to lay out this pathway that leads to Haim, to the way of life. Imagine for a moment you are an invisible, incorporeal, immortal, infinite being, the Creator of the universe, and that imagine that you see the crown jewel of your creation, humankind, mankind as it's called, terribly corrupted by ingesting poison into his system. You see, generation after generation after generation, and suffering as a result from a serious form of spiritual amnesia, forgetting who they are, forgetting why they're here, forgetting who brought them here, and why He put them here for, and how to get to the end result that they're desiring. Imagine that you are the Holy One in this situation, and you have to come up with a plan. Imagine you want to reach out to mankind and his various different people, species, but you know that because of the pitiful state mankind has devolved into, He can neither see you, nor neither hear you, your voice, neither feel your presence, nor can He even recognize your voice if for a second He hears it. Imagine that the lethal virus that the man has ingested masquerades in the fallen world as the knowledge, and a knowledge of good and evil in particular. Imagine that evil, that virus has reduced the operating capacity of mankind's mind to a fraction of what you designed into it. Now, if you were the Creator, beloved, how would you choose to reintroduce yourself in your plan to fallen, fractured, and fragmented humankind? What would be your methodology? What would be your vehicle? What would be your medium? How would you reintroduce your grand plan of redemption and restoration to Him and to the creation itself? How would you choose to awaken Him to your love? How would you choose to reveal to Him your wisdom and draw Him into your magnetism and your power and your glory and your goodness? How would you choose to introduce mankind to the pathways he will need to follow to get back in touch with his identity, to get back in touch with his destiny, to get back in touch with his mission and purpose on earth? How would you do it? Well, it shows the Holy One has chosen to do it a particular way, through the Torah. He chose to do it by writing to all men the greatest love letter that has ever been written, the magnificent love letter that the world calls the Torah, the tree of life. He's chosen to begin His love letter to mankind with Parsha Bereshit, the Parsha of grand introductions. He's going to introduce Himself to the world and to mankind in the beautiful poetic ways, functional ways that will be unforgettable. The first few chapters of the book of Genesis tell us who He is, and we stand in awe, with mouths agape, with hearts humbled at who he is and the power and the majesty and the wisdom. We only do that, though, if we forsake the pride and the arrogance of fallen man's theologies, ideologies, ethnocentricities, and other institutional thinking. If we look at him, and we look into his tree of life, and we lay hold of it, then we become the most humble of all people on earth. We become the most hungry, desirous people. We become the most malleable, formable, shapeable people in the earth. Well, welcome to the study of the Torah, the Creator's manual of instruction for how to live life on earth. Torah in general, and this opening parsha called Bereshit in particular, invite whoever in this world has ears to hear to engage in the ultimate time travel odyssey. That's how he's going to introduce himself. That's how he's going to reconnect with mankind. He's going to help us engage in the ultimate time travel odyssey. He's going to help us to break free through his words in the Torah, to break free of the limiting confines of the time-space continuum, to go back and back and back in time, to time travel through all the intervening millennia of corrupting human experience, back to the source, to our source, to where we came from. Back to the womb, the matrix in which he created us to be incubated in. Back to the very source, the spark of life, and to thereby be born again. The Torah is our tree of life. With that in mind, let us sing the Shema and begin our endeavor, as ancients have done forever and ever. A Shema. Join with me if you know it. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod, Malchuto Leolam Vayed. Amen. Now listen and hear and heed and respond and resonate, O Israel, because our God is the Holy One. Our God is the ultimate oneness, the ultimate echad, the ultimate unifying unity that draws all things into the orbit of his gravitational pull. Be drawn in. Blessed be his glorious attributes, his name, his characteristics, and his character. Blessed be his kingdom forever and ever. Amen. Well, Torah, divine energy flowing our way. Water, rivers of living water, and the tree's life cycle of life. Torah is like a Rubik's Cube of life, and it's presented to us in sometimes metaphorical terms, but actual historical terms as well, and prophetic terms of what the future is going to hold as well. Torah is like divine energy brought into a laser focus so we can let our spirits and our minds collide and surrender the mind, surrender to the spirit, and understand. The Torah is to human spirit what sunlight is to plants. Well, what if we don't know the story or its writer near as well as we think we do, as our theologies have convinced us that we do? What if we don't know the story or its writer or its source near as well as we need to flourish, to thrive in our lives upon earth? What if there is more to the ancient text of the Torah and the scroll that we've opened than we have ever imagined? What if the Holy One has far more up his proverbial sleeve than we have ever dreamed about what he wants from us, for us in this world? What if our appointed year, what if this is our appointed year? What if this is our appointed year to awaken and embrace the treasure trove of more in the kingdom? Well, that's the story of what we're doing this year. But you might wonder, why doesn't the Holy One just tell us plainly what he wants from us? Because we're diseased of mind and we're broken and conflicted of heart. He has to break through our minds and break through our hard hearts and get into the essence of our neshama, our spirit, our eternal part of our being, So that's why he doesn't just tell us plainly, because we just reject it. We just misunderstand it. We just form it into a doctrine or a theology and try to force it down other people's throats or judge them for not accepting ours and our way. He doesn't give us a to-do list because he doesn't want us to be in this legalistic mindset. He doesn't give us a roadmap because he wants us to follow him wherever he goes. He doesn't want us to be like sci-fi robots or drones, stormtroopers without wills, minds, passions, priorities of our own. He doesn't want us to be like that. He wants us to be his shade, his shadow, voluntarily, lovers, seeking after him, pursuing him, and doing his will out of desire and delight. Well, that's the story. And welcome to Bereshit. In the beginning, it's usually translated into English. It could also mean, probably also means, really means, in the shaking, in the breaking forth, in the sending forth of vibrations and pulses of energy into the world with his words. Bereshit. Introducing the giver and the essential womb matrix and the meaning and the purpose of life. So fire up the DeLorean, so to speak. Buckle your seatbelts, beloved, and set out on the ultimate journey back to the matrix of all matrices, the womb of all wombs, the source of all sources. Let's do our call to worship, and then we'll get started for just a few moments before I have to leave you. The call to worship is the Baruch, the blessing before reading the actual words of the Torah. Here's how it goes in Hebrew. Sing along with me if you know it. Baruch Adonai Hamborach. Baruch Adonai Hamborach Leolam Vayeh. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amin v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen. So be it. And now, me and my friends, all who have joined or will ever join and listen to this podcast, may you open our eyes, O Holy One, that we may see the wondrous things in your Torah, for we are just strangers here on this earth. So please do not hide your instructions for living, your more excellent ways from us. Where did we leave off? Last week, last season, last year? Quite an eventful time we're in right now. And we left off back in Deuteronomy 34, 32, 33. And the last day of his life, Moshe went with Yehoshua, with Joshua, as he's known in the Western world. He went out to every tribe of the Bnei Israel, gathered on the plains of Moab before they crossed over into the Promised Land. And before he left them, he went on the last day of his life. And he said, Simu lavavkim, set your hearts like flint. Set your hearts on kol hadavarim, on all of these words and things that I testify to you among you today. And charge your children to treasure and cherish and make and build all these words of all this thing, this Torah, this tree of life. For it is not a nothing for you. It's not a pouring out of nothing, an emptiness for you. It is hayechem. It is your lives. It is your flourishings. It is your thrivings. It is the source of all of those things, the source of your nurture. And it is through this word, this dabar, this substantive truth of the tree of life of Torah, that you will prolong your days in the land that you're crossing over the Jordan to possess. In the conclusion of chapter 34, the text says that there has not arisen in Israel a prophet like Moshe, whom the Holy One knew face to face, in all the signs and the wonders that the Holy One sent him to do in the land of Egypt, before Pharaoh, before all of his servants, and in all of his land, and by all the mighty power and all the great awesomeness which Moshe operated in the sight of all Israel. That's how the story ended last week. We began again. An ancient blessing says, V'zot haTorah, this is the Torah. Asher sam Moshe lifnei b'nei Israel, that the Holy One entrusted to Moshe, and Moshe gave to b'nei Israel, al pi Adonai b'yad Moshe, or by the mouth of Adonai, but by the hand of Moses. Eitz Chaim, it is a tree of life. He lamachazim ba, those who lay hold of her. V'tomcheha me'eshuar. And happiness, joy, training to those who possess her. All her ways are peace. All her ways are goodness. Hashivenu Adonai Eleka. Now, turn us, O Holy One, to you. V'nashuva, and we will return to you. Hadesh Yamenu Tekere. And renew and refresh, rebirth our days as from the beginning, from the source. So this is the Torah, and this is our tree of life. It begins with Genesis 1:1. Bereshit bara Elohim. And in the context of a shaking, what the King James Version calls in the beginning, the Creator created. He barad, he cut, he carved, he separated out, he created. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. The heavens, the realm of choreographed movement that responds to the voice of the Holy One without having to think about it. Offsetting parallel world number 1. He created that, and then he created offsetting parallel world number 2. Haaretz, the earth, the place of the realm of independence of will, where we must think about it and choose to do His will. So there's the Shemayim realm and the Haaretz realm, and these two realms are parallel, but they are not completely alike. They are complementary, and they prove the essence of the heavenlies on the earth. Genesis 1:2, continuation. And the earth, the Eretz side, was without form. It was a chaotic wasteland, and it was void, it was empty, it was directionless, it was purposelessness. And and darkness, a complete lack of light that prevents life from flourishing, was on, over, and covering the face of the deep, the tumult of the formless wasteland. But then the breath of the Holy One, Creator, brooded, hovered, fluttered over, and stirred the churning waters, the face of the waters of the deep. V'amar Elohim Yehior. And the Creator proclaimed, declared, pronounced, spoke, Yehior, light, be. V'yehior, and light was. Shining, pulsing, brightness existed that illuminated, that happened because of His voice and because of the release of the source, the seed, the Genesis seed of all life, of all Hayah, of the tree of life. It was Yehi, or the seed. Vayareh Elohim et haor kitov, and the Holy One, the Creator, beheld and saw and considered and reasoned, and the light was good, was for goodness. Vayabdel Elohim ben haor uvein hachosek, and the Holy One separated, made a division, a separation of realms between the light realm and the darkness realm. V'chara Elohim leor yom, and He called the light realm, the light day, or yom. And He called v'chosek chara leila, and He called the realm of the darkness leila, or night. Well, that begins the Parsha of Bereshit. And there are 7 different sections of aliyot. In every Parsha of Torah, the way it's designed, there are 7 sections. And the 7 aliyot of Parsha of Bereshit, 7 risings to speak and read in the synagogue, but also of the basic divisions of this Parsha, subdivisions of this Parsha. There's the first aliyah of the 7 is 1:1, Genesis 1:1 through Genesis 2:3. That is the overture to the opera. The grand opera of Torah is like this musical presentation, this beautiful thought. And the grand overture at the beginning is the song of creation, and the song of introduction to the Creator, to His creation, and the creation to the generations that will come forth from it. And it's presented in 7 movements, from first light to Shabbat Shalom. That's Genesis 1:1 through 2:3, the first aliyah of Parshat Bereshit. Oh, what mysteries we will uncover as we read through that together in our times and we study it together. Oh, what revelations we will receive in the months and years to come as we review all of Torah in light of this Genesis seed. The overture of the opera, the song of introduction of Creator and creation. 7 movements from first light to Shabbat Shalom. The second subdivision of the parsha is found in chapter 2, verses 4 through 19. This is the placement of man in the Garden of Eden. This is the ultimate Edenic state that we're designed to hunger for and long for. He creates in us beforehand by releasing the tree of life, the root structure. He tells us we belong in Eden. That's where we're destined to go back to, of course. So the special connection is drawn by this story, by this psalm, between the Creator and mankind, and the reason for it is stated, and the placement of it, the ultimate purpose of it in the Garden of Eden is stated. And also the first instruction, the first mitzvah, the first more excellent way is provided in the first test of men's free will, the first moment, crucible or crisis of trust. The first crucible crisis of choice is laid out, and that's what takes place in the second aliyah. He's going to say specifically of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of evil. Of all the other trees you may freely eat, but of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you must not eat, for in the day that you eat of it you will surely begin to die. Third aliyah, third subdivision of the parsha is Genesis 2:20 through 3:21. And this details the extraction of Hava from Adam's side, the male and female concept of humankind and how it's supposed to relate, and how the parties are to relate to one another in the Edenic state, in the most perfect state. And we want to see that that's what we should hunger for in this union of man and woman. But we must understand that we're no longer in that state, so it will not become perfectly as he said. Man will not leave his father and become one with his wife in perfect ways, because we're not in the garden. We have had something happen to us, and we've been made defective by that thing that has happened to us in the interval. But 2:20 through 3:21 lay out the details of the extraction of Hava from Adam's side. It lays out the couple's initial synchronized state and what they're supposed to be to relate to one another. It lays out the trial of free will as well, and the first sin, as it's called in the King James Version, the first deviance, making a choice that is adverse to the actual instructions the Holy One has given, a breach of Torah, a breach of the tree of life, an abandonment of the tree of life, and choosing instead the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. The fourth subdivision, as we're continuing on through our brief review of this parsha, fourth aliyah is Genesis 3:22 through 4:18. This is life after Eden. This is life in the beginnings of the time we know it as life today. Life after Eden, life in the thorn and thistle world, life when the whispering of the wind and the adversary is everywhere, and the voices that we hear are not as much of the Holy One's voice as they are of the voices of other men and of ideologies and theologies and offenses. So we have life after Eden, an introduction to human reproduction. The first children are born, Cain and Havel. We're introduced to the first time that human beings lost their emotional continence, were unable to hold it, unable to hold their anger, and we see Cain being the example of that. Whenever we let negative emotions run amok and do not take authority and do not let the Holy One help us, which the Holy One came to Cain and gave him every option and every way to avoid being emotionally incontinent the way he was. He was downcast, he was depressed, he was angry, he was jealous. All these negative emotions combined to cause the first murder, the first taking of human life, the first spilling of innocent blood. And so we get to the fifth aliyah, the fifth subdivision of the parsha is Genesis 4:19 through 22, a very short section introducing a man named Lamech from the lineage of Cain, a man who had 2 wives. He married 2 women, and we see how this began to cause such a problem, and he began to be violent, and he killed a man, and he testified, told the story to his wives. And the sixth aliyah, Genesis 4:23 through 5:24, This is Lamech's actual confession. And Adam and Hava then have a third son, Shet, Seth as he's called in the English language. And you see his line being given, his lineage being given, all the way including people like Methuselah as he's called, and Hanuk or Enoch as he's called. But he was not, for Elohim took him. And then the seventh and final concluding aliyah of this parsha of Bereshit will be Genesis 5:25 through Genesis 6:8, this 8th verse of chapter 6, preceding the flood narrative. The seventh aliyah goes through in continuation of the lineage of man past Enoch, from Adam all the way to Noah, ending with the pandemic of across the world. A pandemic of spirituality that morphed its way, in fact, and ingratiated its way into men's actions and his thoughts and his behaviors and his speech. A pandemic of Ra, Shakat, and Hamas, of evil as it's called in the Western world, but self-obsession, self-absorption, self-prevailing. And then shakat, which is corruption, deviation from the holy, the righteous, the good, deviation from the plan, and Hamas, which is malice and violence and cruelty that flows from those things. It was a pandemic of these three things, these three deviant things that hit the earth. And all that leads us up to the next parsha, which will explain, discuss the Creator's drastic intervention. The most drastic form of intervention, we'll later learn there's another way, a better way that he'll teach us in the age to come, the way of the covenant of Abraham. Well, the curtain opens and here we are. The days of Adam and Hava, the days of Noah and his sons are coming. We're going to be introduced to the Creator. How well do you know him? How well do you know Elohim, as he's referred to in the first chapter? Yod-He-Vav-He, as he's referred to in the second chapter. God, in the English translations that we read most often, is the translation of Elohim. Adonai is the typical substitution for the name Yod-He-Vav-He that we find in the English Bibles that we read. So who is he and how well do you know him? Do you know what he's all about, what he's up to? You know what his relationship to this creation is, or do you know what his relationship to mankind is? Be thinking about that. Be talking about it, because this is going to shape everything about your vision. If you connect with him, if we can possibly read through all the lies we've been told and all the mistakes and all the presuppositions we've had by virtue of our ethnicity, our religion, our culture, our social systems, if you can break through that and actually find him, beloved, we're going to find how wonderful he is and how wonderful his plan is. So we're introduced to our Creator. We're introduced to our ecosystem. What is this earth supposed to be like? And what is it? How is it supposed to relate to the heavens? How is the realm of the earth, where men have freedom of choice, relate to the realm of the heavens, where angels and cherubim and seraphim and living creatures and 24 elders all do the will of the Holy One out of delight and joy without even having to think about it? What are the correlations between the realms, and how do we connect and relate the realms to one another? What will it be like? How could we possibly get back to Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden? How can we get back to the joint enterprise of treasuring and cherishing the garden and serving the land, serving it, serving the earth, becoming the vessel of heaven's goodness into the earth, wherever we may go? Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden, the divine plan for the goal, the objective, the end game, to bring ultimate examples of collaboration and synergism with the divine and with his plan. How will we learn from this parsha the lesson of the voices? Do you know the lesson of the voices? I don't think we do, because we listen to too many other voices. We tune ourselves in and we think we're not informed if we haven't watched the news, or we haven't gotten on the social media feeds, or we think we need other voices. We need the religious voices. We need the political voices to tell us, the ideological voices, the scientific voices, the medical voices. We need these other sources, the sociological voices, the pleasure-seeking voices, the entertainment voices. We want these other voices to teach us, so we haven't learned the lesson yet. But this year, can we learn the lesson of the voices? Always seek to live by the voice, the words, the Genesis seed of the Holy One. The voice of the Holy One is all that we can hold on to, all that is true and all that is sure. And the other voices are all lying to us at one level or another, even if they don't even know it to themselves. And the two trees, we understand that we're going back to the tree of life. We want to lay hold of it. We want to return to it. We want to see it for what it is. We want to see the fullness of what it's doing as operating through the tree life cycle, and from all the way from seed to fruit and everywhere in between, and all the giving off of the changing the atmosphere with good and bringing forth the stabilization of the earth, of the soil around us, and providing a habitat for all who will come and be nurtured by the shade. Oh, this is what we want to learn from the Torah and his ways, the tree of life, and learning the pathways that we should follow to be able to be flourishing, nurturing, to be thriving in our society, in our times, in our world. These are our lessons that we will learn from Parsha Bereshit, beloved. I hope you've enjoyed our little introduction. I hope you will have a little time now to visit either with your friends or on your own, with your own studies, to get to the deeps and the details of Parsha Bereshit. We will revisit the truths of this Parsha so many times that I almost hesitate to get into them now. But I think this is a good day for you to realize this is the beginning of it all. This is the departure of the journey. This is the moment we open the scroll, and now we begin to return to and lay hold of the tree of life. Shabbat Shalom. I'll see you next week.